Hi there, and welcome to Time Travel Talks. In today's episodes, we'll be discussing... Wait, haven't I done this before? Like, the exact same introduction multiple times? Either that, I'm just really unoriginal of how to start these videos. Regardless, today we're going to be discussing time looping stories, which depending on how you tell them, can be super fun, or super depressing. Anyway, most people are familiar with time looping narrative as it's a frequently used trope in many different genres, from whole films being based around it to even one-off episodes of popular TV shows. The point is, it's used a lot because it really is a lot of fun and can be adapted in a myriad of ways. A time loop itself is when a character becomes trapped within a certain period of time, and a certain trigger causes the person to reset to the beginning of the time loop, often being the only person who retains the memories of previous loops. This cycle continues until the character is finally able to break out of the cycle and continue along the normal timeline. Like I said, the base of the time looping story is fairly simple. It requires just 4 factors: the length of time, the cause of the loop, the reset trigger, and the breaking of the loop. All stories involving time loops have their own variations of each factor, but generally follow the same formula. The length of time gives the character a set time limit, usually a day. The cause of the loop can vary from scientific machines to straight up magic depending on the genre. The trigger is what event resets the timer. The most common one is when the time runs out, or a certain character dies, or even a key event happens. And finally, breaking the loop depends on the character fulfilling the right actions in the correct order, or simply accepting their faults and becoming a better person. Today, we're going to be looking at the time loops from 3 different genre views, as they all have their own unique narrative style of the same trope. So, we shall look at sci-fi loops, rom-com loops, and horror loops. Now, sci-fi loops are unique as they actually try to explain why time is looping, usually through some complex machine that goes horribly wrong. Now, it's just science mumbo-jumbo as the writers have to create whatever plot-convenient energy device powers the machine. With that being said, we are talking about time travel here, so it's all made up. Either way, the time machine goes horribly wrong and traps people within a certain timeline, such as in the sci-fi film Ark. After a scientist named Renton and his team invent the perpetual motion device, the lab is attacked by rebel scientists attempting to steal the machine. After this, Renton dies and wakes up at the start of the interaction with the rebels and tries a different approach, only to fail and try again. Each loop, he learns more and more about the attacks, and eventually he realizes that more and more people can remember previous cycles due to their proximity to the machine. So, through sheer accident, they created a time looping machine. However, after the 9th loop, Renton finds that the machine loops time but also erases memories of all previous cycles every 9 times. The film ends revealing that they have lived this loop not 9 times, but thousands upon thousands of times, and does not actually break the cycle in the end. Yikes, that was a little scary as it missed out on one key factor, that they don't actually break the cycle in the end and continue repeating events on into infinity. And this isn't the only film to do so either. So, instead of getting bogged down by the mechanisms of time looping, let's look at some approaches that don't even bother to answer how the loops happen, other than a time wizard did it. The rom-com route is different, as it's less about the method of looping and rather about the character themselves. Most of the time, it's some selfish person caught up in the time loop, retaining memories from each cycle in an attempt to improve themselves, and over the course of several cycles, sometimes even thousands of cycles, the character usually becomes a better person, and after fulfilling a key role, they finally break the cycle and escape. An example of this would be Groundhog's Day. Phil Connors works as a local news reporter and is sent to Puxatawney, Pennsylvania to report on the local Groundhog's Day festival. After half-assing his way through the day and being trapped by a blizzard, Phil goes to bed. When he wakes up, he finds that he has started the day over from the beginning, and the exact same events are playing out as they did before. After a few more loops, Phil realizes he is trapped in a time loop, seemingly free of consequences. After several hundred loops of manic fun, greed, theft, kidnapping of a local mammal, skill binging, regular binging, and suicide, Phil eventually learns to improve himself and become a better man, winning the girl and breaking the cycle. These rom-com routes all focus on the character in the end, with them giving in to their worldly desires, abusing the time loop ability, and finally accepting their faults, which is used in a ton of other films. So remember, dear viewers, if you ever find yourself trapped in a time loop, all you have to do is become a better person. That, or kill the time wizard that trapped you there in the first place. Speaking of killing, that was a weird segue, the horror genre, which uses this approach in a very unique way. One approach is the horror loop is similar to the rom-com formula in that the characters must learn more about themselves, except the reset trigger is the person being murdered, so they must figure out their own murder to prevent their own death before breaking the cycle. Another approach they use is chasing previous loops of other cycles, such as in the film Triangle. Jess goes on a boating trip with her friends, and after capsizing, they all board an abandoned cruise liner. Suddenly, a mysterious figure kills most of the group, and Jess is forced to fight the attacker. The mysterious figure then warns her to kill them all to be free. Jess then finds the exact same group from earlier get on the boat with another Jess. Time is looping, and Jess finds out that she is the mysterious killer from before and is forced to kill her friends. The film ends with Jess finding hundreds of her own bodies from previous cycles before dying herself, with the cycle repeating again with Jess getting on that boat. This theory is very complex as it involves chasing previous versions of yourself in a never-ending chain of murder of the oneself. Or would that be suicide since you're technically killing yourself? Either way, the overlapping loop dynamic is played out in a bunch of other films too. So, after seeing how often this narrative style is used, we should ask, why is it so popular? My personal take on it is because it's a fun and unique narrative style. Think about it. Character finds that events begin to repeat themselves in the same pattern, and pretty soon people find a way to exploit that power, be it with reckless abandon with no consequences, or showing off the ability to know what's going to happen next, before all coming to a satisfying end where the protagonist goes through this massive character redemption arc. From a literary standpoint, it creates a great story. That, and it's just fun to use time travel that isn't overly complicated. Yet some people will still go on a long rant about the genre in a crudely animated and informative kind of way. Anyway, I like to continue explaining other films that use this trope, but I'm afraid they're all too similar, and I'd just be repeating myself.